Hey, we're so glad to have you here today. My name's Nate. If we haven't met, man, I say it every week. It's a joy, it's an honor to serve as the lead pastor. And if you're watching online, a part of our online campus with Pastor Ridge, welcome today. I believe it doesn't matter how you got here, just the fact that you're here today. Some of you barely made it, but guess what? You made it. So give yourself a hand. Let's welcome everybody in today, especially our first time guests. And I just got to know, how many of you are fired up, Red Bull amped ready for our Heart for the House end of year offering today? Come on, let's fill this room with anticipation. Like we believe our best is really ahead. And if you're maybe new to church or new to Life Point, you might be going, okay, these people are really weird. Why are they clapping to give money away? Well, it's because we're not giving money away. We're actually investing into the future. And so today, although there's no expectation for you, we're coming around our annual end of year expansion offering. This year we're calling it a Heart for the House. And it really is an act, what you're gonna see here in a few moments, it's an act of gratitude for what the Lord has done in our life personally over the last year. And it's an act of anticipation for what God is yet to do going into next year. And we just believe that the greatest investment that we can really make with our lives is investing into the local church. That your ROI, your rate on return is life change. It's seeing stories like baptisms that we just saw. It's making a difference in our city and starting new churches. And so today, that's why we've come. We really have come for one reason, and that is to act our faith with our action through this Heart for the House offering. But before we get into that, I believe I have a message today that's gonna help prepare our hearts for what is about to take place in the next 27 minutes and 30 seconds. So I wanna share this message as we close out really a series we've been in that we've entitled In My House. Everyone shout, in my house. Hopefully you've been with us. We've been sharing really the values and the culture of Life Point. And in case you've missed any week, here's kind of what we've talked about. We said this week one, in my house, people are our passion. You just need to know that at Life Point. Like programs, that's not our passion. Buildings, styles of worship, those all have their place, but they're gonna come and they're gonna go. People, that's the mission, that's our passion. I say all the time that when you come to Life Point, I want you to marry the mission, that's full life in Jesus, but date the method. Like the moment the method isn't working to reach people in this culture, in this context, we're gonna change the method because we wanna be effective reaching people with the mission. And our mission will always be people. Then we talked week 2 about how serving is our privilege. I don't have to, I get to. What an honor it is to be an innkeeper if you were here a part of that week, to care for the people that God brings right here to this house. Last week, Pastor Chris did a great job. He talked about how generosity is our responsibility. Like that's all me. And so today I wanna end with this idea that legacy will be our history. That in our house, legacy will one day be our history. I love this word legacy. If you're a note taker, I love this word legacy because legacy really answers this question: what will live on when I'm gone? That's a big thing to think about. That what will live on when I'm gone? What am I building today that others will be able to stand on tomorrow? Because I don't know if a lot of us will stop and consider that we are building something, but is what I'm actually building have the ability to live beyond myself? I don't know about you, church, but I want to live in such a way that my life lives on. That when I die, you won't believe it. You might have attended my funeral and saw my body in a casket or in an urn or whatever people decide to do with my physical body, but you're not gonna believe that I'm gone by the way my influence is still reaching people, by the way that I raised my kids and they're now living their life, by the local church that I left behind, by the city that was transformed, by the leaders that were raised up, by the people who came to Christ. I gotta know, does anybody wanna live a way that when you die, people aren't even gonna believe it? Yeah, that's legacy. I wanna live a life. It's short. James calls it a breath. It's here today, it's gone tomorrow, but I want to live in such a way that my life outlives my life. And that's the kind of church that you're a part of today. And I really do believe that the future of the church tomorrow is being made by the decisions that we make today. So in a few moments when you give, you're not just giving, but you're really determining the kind of church we want to be for the next generation. So what I want to do today, if we're going to really have this legacy mentality, then I want to share with you a message that I shared this past summer at our owners' night of worship. Now, if that language is kind of new to you, at Life Point, let me just kind of explain. We don't do membership in the traditional sense. Instead, we call it church ownership. And it's really because in our culture, members have rights, but owners take responsibility. Right, and that's what we want to bring up. That's what we want to create in this church right here, that when you come to LifePoint, I want you to own this vision. It's not, this church doesn't belong to me. I hope you know that. This is our church. This is our mission. So when you take responsibility, then you begin to realize, wait a minute, that's my responsibility to pray for the staff. That's my responsibility to serve. It's my responsibility to give. It's my responsibility to invite my neighbors to church, or hey, even better, lead them into a relationship with Jesus. That's on me. I want a church filled with people who say, man, I want to own that vision. So there's a lot of value in being an owner, not just personally, but what we just started doing 3 times a year, we gather all of our owners together and we do different things. We'll do night of worship, vision casting, but we always do something fun. And I'm telling you all this because today, this afternoon is actually our final owner gathering of the year. This afternoon, we're gonna be going down to Strikers Bowling in Rock Hill. We're renting out like 20, 25 bowling lanes where you're invited to come, bring your family. It's free for you. It's just a way that our staff gets to thank you, honor you, appreciate you for all that you do at LifePoint. So there's a 3, a 4 o'clock slot, and a 5 o'clock slot. If you didn't pre-register, no worries, just come on out. The 3 p.m.'s filled, but there's room at the 4 and the 5. And if you're wondering, okay, well, how do I know if I'm an owner? Like, I don't know. I don't want to show up. You're going to check my owner card. Like, do we have that? We don't have that. Here's basically what it is. Very simple. If you serve at LifePoint on any ministry team, if you give financially and you invest here regularly, or if you're in a life group, we consider you to be an owner. So come on out this afternoon, meet some people. It's gonna be a good time. But over the summer, we did this, I'm gonna trip over that. How many of y'all know that's gonna happen? Over the summer though, I was able to kind of share a message that I believe is so important for us today as we get ready to have a heart for the house. I think if we're truly gonna be a legacy church, then here's my subject today. What does it mean to be second mile minded? That's what I wanna talk about. What does it mean for us to be a second mile minded people? Now you might be wondering, where in the world does this come from? This isn't my idea, this is Jesus. So if you got a Bible, grab it. We're gonna go to Matthew chapter 5 today. Matthew 5, Jesus is the one who's gonna kind of introduce this new idea of what it means to be second mile minded. We're kind of picking up, most scholars have coined Matthew chapter 5, Jesus's inaugural sermon known as the Sermon on the Mount. Maybe the most important message Jesus ever preached, because it was his first public sort of inauguration to the Jewish community of here's who I am and here's the message that I'm gonna be about. And right from the beginning, Matthew chapter 5, he doesn't waste any time. Look at verse 38 with me. If you're ready, shout, I'm ready. All right, here we go. Matthew 5 verse 38, Jesus says, you've heard that it was said. So pause already. In other words, he's looking at this Jewish crowd and he's like, look, what I'm about to tell you, you've already heard this. You grew up with this. This is culturally normal. This is acceptable. This is what everybody does. And then he goes on, he says, you've heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. So you grew up in this culture where it's all about, if you hurt me, I'm gonna hurt you. You steal from me, I'm stealing from you. You say a yo mama joke, I'm gonna give you a yo mama joke right back at, like an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Everybody does this, it's common. He says, but I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. If anyone forces you to go, here it is, 1 mile, he says, go with them 2 miles. Give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. Let's look back in at that verse right there. Verse 41, this is our verse today, heart for the house. If anyone forces you to go with them 1 mile, go with them 2. I just imagine Jesus sort of standing on the side of this mountain. And I've been to this region, by the way, near the Sea of Galilee, where scholars kind of believe this would be the area where this took place. Standing on the side of the hill would have allowed this amphitheater effect for his voice to be able to carry, so that the hundreds, we don't actually know how many people were in attendance. And right from the beginning, Jesus is establishing, not just to the audience, but remember, these 12 new followers, disciples, they don't really know what they signed up to follow. And so he's basically saying, my kingdom, this new thing that I'm ushering in, it has a new playbook. It has a new way of doing things. It has a different kind of scorecard than you're used to. And you need to know right from the gate that we are not a people who do the bare minimum. We're not the ones who settle for good, but rather we're gonna be a second mile over and above kind of people. I love that because I feel like in so many ways, that's what God's called us to be, second mile people. And if you've ever had anybody go over and above for you, you know it's memorable, don't you? You ever have somebody it was not expected, caught you off guard, their expression of generosity or encouragement in your life? This has happened to me a couple times. One happened really early on in my marriage when, if you don't know my story, Emily and I, that's my wife, we've had the privilege of being a part of the Life Point staff since the church was 8 months old. So Life Point we are 17, we'll be 18 next September. So I jumped in when they were 8 months old, and the church at the time didn't have any money to pay us. And so you had to do this thing called support raising, which I didn't grow up in like a pastor family. I didn't know what that meant. It basically means that you got to go ask people for money for your salary. And we're like, let's go, let's do it. And we raised support for 3 years, and God provided. I'll never forget, we moved here, and my car, this piece of junk car that got me through college, man, breaks down. Like 3 months being here, okay? Of course this would happen. And so we don't have the money to fix it. We don't have the money to buy a new car. And a buddy of mine at the time, he said, hey, I've got this little 2-door white Nissan pickup truck. Yeah, why don't you remember that? Why don't you just drive that for a little bit until you can save up the money to get a car? And I was like, man, that's very kind of you. So he gives me the keys to his car. About 3 weeks later, he shows up at my house and he says, Nate, I really feel like the Lord is telling me that this needs to be your truck. And right there, pulls out the title, signs over the title to the truck, and just gives it to me. Like who does that? Like that, I mean, here I am 17 years later, I still remember that. You know why? Because when you go the second mile for somebody, that leaves a lasting impression. I'm gonna help you out with something. Nobody remembers average. Nobody remembers common. Nobody remembers ordinary and just doing what is status quo and expected. But if you wanna leave the kind of impression that Jesus wants us to leave, we gotta be willing to go the second mile. Yeah, you know that every church is leaving an impression, right? The question is, what kind of impression do we wanna leave? Think about that. When you serve at this church, when you showed up today to serve, what kind of impression are we gonna leave? Because everyone's gonna leave with an impression. When you open up your home life group leaders to life group and you disciple people in the context of your house, what kind of impression are they gonna leave with? And Jesus says, look, I'm starting something different. This isn't eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Nah, y'all are used to that. I want a people who are gonna be about the second mile. Now, when Jesus would have said this, context, of course, is king. Context is always king. When he actually would have said, when somebody forces you, interesting word, to go 1 mile, I tell you go 2. The audience probably would have gasped. There would have been probably a sense of, who does this guy think he is? Frustration. I say that because many of you know, if you grew up in a church background, that during this period in history, Rome was governing Israel. A few decades before Jesus would be born, we're gonna celebrate that. General Pompey from Rome came into Israel as the Roman military leader, general, and he basically overthrew most of Israel, and they annexed most of Jerusalem in the southern part of Israel into Roman territory, which means that Roman law now applied to Jewish citizens. And there was an actual law, get this, actual written law that a Roman guard at any time, at any point, could ask a Jewish citizen to carry their military bag up to 1 mile. And the Jewish citizen was legally obligated to carry the bag, which is a weird law, isn't it? And of course, this got me down a rabbit trail of like, I wonder what other weird laws there are in existence today. And did you know there's an entire website dedicated to some of the most odd state and local county laws in America? Can I read a few? Can I? I got 7 of you, your permission. This is great. Next time you travel to Mobile, Alabama, I don't know why you'd want to go there, especially if you're a Georgia fan, you're not going anywhere too soon. It's too soon. By the way, have you noticed all the Michigan blue in this church today? Y'all have been dormant for a long time. Like, I didn't even know that was here. So next time you go to Mobile, Alabama, did you know that confetti in Mobile, Alabama is illegal? Here's the state law. In the city of Mobile, Alabama, it is illegal to possess, make, sell, is this marijuana? Like, what is this? Give away or throw any non-biodegradable plastic-based confetti. That's crazy. Like, but I'll be honest with you, like as a dad, I support this law. I'm gonna tell you right now, if any of you get my kids slime or anything glitter confetti based for Christmas, wait a minute. Now I know it's gonna happen. Like it's, yeah, we don't do that. I'll tell your kids about Santa. That's all I'm saying. Anyways, try me. If you're gonna go to Galesburg, Illinois, I'll be honest, I don't know where Galesburg is. The city of Galesburg has an ordinance, you ready for this? Banning bike riders from removing both hands from the handlebars or feet from the pedals or engaging in any aerobatic or fancy riding on the streets. There is a law against fancy bike riding in Illinois. Back row, can we not just admit that, like, if you're a city police officer in Galesburg, Illinois, the crime rate is really low. If this is what we're going after, like 10-year-olds doing the no handlebar trick. Here's one more final one in Kansas. Kansas, again, you know these laws are created because people did this. In Kansas, they have a no hunting from a motorboat law. Actually, it states this: in Kansas, it is illegal to hunt any game animal or furry bearing animal from a motorboat, wait for it, airplane, or motor vehicle. So, like, I just want to see the guy who's in a helicopter with a shotgun. Right? Yeah, it's Troy. I know, my guy Troy. So I say all this because I'm convinced that if this website was around in Matthew chapter 5 in the Sermon on the Mount, this would be one of those laws. Like, this is so random that at any point a Roman soldier by law could make a Jewish citizen carry their military bag up to 1 mile. Now, I have a military bag right here that I've been tripping over, and this military bag, I try to do it the best that I could to replicate an artifact of what maybe a Roman bag, or it could have been a shield, would have looked like. And on average, scholars say that a Roman soldier's military bag could have been anywhere from 50 to 80 pounds. So this is a 70-pound bag right here. So just, oh my gosh, I gotta do more CrossFit, DJ. I've been skipping those days. So just imagine this. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're walking to the market to get some medicine for your sick child at home, it didn't matter if you were getting ready to get on a boat because you're gonna go fishing to earn money, to buy bread, to feed your family. For any reason, at any point, if a military soldier stopped you, you legally had to carry this for a mile. You can only imagine how much the Romans abused this. They did this so much that the Jews knew that 1 mile, get this, was exactly 1,000 left-footed steps. You know there's no Fitbits back then. My Apple Watch thinks I'm working out. There's no Apple Watch. There's no Garmin. There's no GPS. This was so common, so abused that the Jews knew, okay, you want me to carry this? I'm gonna do it just the minimum, 1,000 left-footed steps. You better believe it, 999, 1,000. Boy, they dropped that bag. It didn't matter if they were there in the middle of the road, and contractually their obligation was over, and they went back to doing whatever it is that they were doing. So Jesus steps into that culture, and he says, Matthew 5, when a Roman forces you to go 1 mile, hey, let's go 2. In other words, the kind of kingdom that I'm ushering in, we're not a Fitbit people. Quit counting steps. Stop doing the bare minimum. That's all you've been doing is an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. You hurt me, I'm gonna hurt you type of culture for generations, and it's gotten you nowhere. It makes no impact, but rather we're gonna be a people of the second mile, because it's in the second mile that you experience freedom. It's in the second mile, church, that you experience the grace of God. It's in the second mile that you actually begin to impact. We got any second mile minded, crazy people in the house that say, hey, even in this culture of division right now, I'm not gonna be divided. I know media wants me to pick a side, but I'm standing in the middle for Jesus. You're not gonna have me do that. Instead, I'm gonna love people who don't agree with me. I'm gonna love people who don't forgive me, because I'm a second mile person. Woo. Yeah, this is who God wants us to be. It's in the second mile. Now, we have to understand the backdrop of this, because this isn't, like roll up your sleeves and let's just be good people. Jesus is actually teaching Matthew 5, this part, in the context of righteousness. Matter of fact, let me show you a few verses before what I just read. Matthew chapter 5, verse 20, he says this, "For I say to you," again, Jewish audience, "that unless your righteousness exceeds the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees, you will by no means enter into this kingdom of heaven." Now remember, the Pharisees and the scribes, they were the top shelf religious moral barometer. So basically what Jesus is saying is that if you actually think that your good efforts and your commitment to obedience and moralism will be the thing that earns you into heaven, you will miss every single time, because that can't make you righteous. Which should then beg the question, okay, what is righteousness? I mean, we say it in church and maybe you've heard that word before, but like, what does righteousness mean? Well, very simply put, righteousness means to be in right standing with God. In other words, you and God are good. But the beauty of this, here's where Jesus comes in. You're not good with God because you're good with God because Jesus is good. I'm not good with God because I'm perfect. I'm good with God because Jesus was perfect for me. This is why we celebrate baptisms and we clap, because they just made this public declaration that I believe that this baby in a manger in 20 days that we're gonna celebrate truly was the Son of God. And this isn't just a story. This is the greatest announcement in human history. And when Jesus lived the perfect life that you and I couldn't live, and he died a death on that cross, and he paid my sin debt in full, so that now when I'm standing in front of Jesus, I have a non-guilty verdict over my life. That's what makes me right with God. It's powerful. It's why Paul would reiterate it in 2 Corinthians chapter 2. Look how Paul says this to the church in Corinth. He says, God made him, that's Jesus, who had no sin, to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. Life Point Church, this is the greatest trade in human history. For Jesus traded his righteousness for our sin. Are you hearing me? Get this. So that he who never once sinned became sin, so that we who have never done a righteous act could become the righteousness of God. How many know if you're on the human end of that, that's a really good trade to take. And when you understand that, like on a heart level, here it is. It will compel you to want to go that second mile. I have to go the second mile. You wanna know why? Because I've been given second mile grace. See, what these 12 disciples didn't realize on that mountain in Matthew chapter 5 is that this truly is a foreshadow of what Jesus was getting ready to do on the cross. For in just 3 short years, you know what he did? He picked up their sin and he carried their weight, and he carries my weight and your guilt and your condemnation and your bad choice and your addiction and all the things in your life that you're ashamed of. You know what he just did? He put it on his back and he carried it all the way to the cross, and he paid that death for you and for me. And so the reason why that we are called to go the second mile is because we've been given second mile grace. Now here it is if you take notes. The second mile, it's not somewhere you go, it's a grace that you live in. Do you see that? It's not a destination, it's a lifestyle. And this is why today on your Heart for the House commitment card, we're adding, we've never done this before, but we're also saying one of the ways that you can have a heart for this house is to actually use your time and your talents and begin to serve. Because every time that you serve, you know what you're really doing for everybody who served today? You actually just spent some time carrying weight for people. You know that, right? Parking team. You didn't park cars today. We don't park cars, we park people. Think about this. You are the first impression that somebody saw when they pulled onto our campus. I know that's a little intimidating, isn't it? But you don't know why they pulled on. You don't know if they're going through a divorce. You don't know if their teenager is, off the deep end. You don't know if they're going through massive tragedy, or maybe they're just new and they're extremely nervous. Something happens when you say, hey, I'm gonna start carrying your weight a little bit. And there's a smile and there's a logistics to it and there's excellence and safety in mind. And then they walk through the front door, and our greeting team, you know what you're doing? You're just transferring the weight for a moment onto your shoulders, and you don't have to hold a door. And I'm gonna smile at you. Maybe nobody has smiled at you all week long, but I'm gonna say good morning. And then I'm gonna check my kids into Discovery Point. And every parent knows that there's no way that mom and dad can focus in the auditorium if they don't know for sure that their kids are well taken care of in a safe, clean environment. So that's what you're doing when you serve. You're saying, hey, let me carry the weight for you so that you can sit and hear a message, and maybe God can do something in your life that's gonna transfer to your kids. And then you come into this room, and all of our sound, all of our production team, you're not just clicking buttons, you're creating a distraction-free environment so that people can hear this message, this gospel. And guess what we're doing? We're carrying weight. We're carrying weight. And what a privilege it is. Every single week. I know you physically can't see it, but to spiritually say, hey, for 70 minutes, can I just carry that for you? And every time we do this, it results, this is the beauty, in life change. One story that really sticks out to me is a lady in our church. Her name's Dina. I love her story. I shared it over the summer, and to me, it's just something I want to share with you again. And here's what Dina says: because you, church, were willing to carry her weight and go the second mile. She says, I started attending Life Point in August of 2018. I was recovering from a horrible breakup, crying a lot at work, feeling lonely, when one of my former coworkers suggested I come visit Life Point because he shared a similar storyline. I was at a point in my life where I lost everything. I wanted to regain my strength mentally, physically, and emotionally. My friend said that at Life Point you feel like family. And I started attending, and I got into one of these life groups, which for me now is more than a group, it's a sisterhood. And man, we celebrate each other's wins. We lift each other up when we're down. And we have given each woman such grace and courage to be vulnerable. I have never experienced such strength and resilience in my life. And I'm positive I would not have had it without the love of these girls. So since attending Life Point, I've become more of a servant. It feels good to be a part of a community. I'm always excited and eager to help out where I can. This church has literally helped change my life. Not only was I baptized here, but as a mother, I wanted more than anything for my son to share in the same love and forgiveness that I have received from Christ. Get this, church. And one of my prayers was recently answered when I had the privilege to stand in the waters and baptize my son. And I am now able to forgive others. I'm able to serve. I'm able to invest in him. My life now, come on. That's why we do what we do. That's why we carry weight. That's why we're getting ready to give an offering. It's not so that we can just give money away. It's because we know that when we carry weight, life change begins to take place. And I don't know about you, but I think that's worth it. I think it's worth it right there. As we get ready to do this, I read this article that a group of psychologists had produced not too long ago. I thought this was so fascinating. They interviewed 50 senior adults who were 90 years or older. And they asked all 50 this one question. They said, if you could go back and do one thing over in life, what would you have done differently? Wow, what a question. Now, the reality is, if you ask a group of 30-year-olds that question, doesn't hold a lot of weight, does it? It's like, bro, you're 30. You haven't lived long enough to go back and read. But when you ask people who have lived 9+ decades, as you are in the fourth quarter of your life, looking back, if you could do one thing over, what would you do? And the resounding answer had nothing to do with money, had nothing to do with retirement accounts, had nothing to do with properties and acquisitions. For the number one thing that they said had everything to do with opportunity. They said, if I could go back and do life over again, I would have risked more. Risk. Church, I just say today on December the 5th that we learn from their past regret so that it doesn't become ours. And I say that we just keep risking. And let's keep putting it all on the line. And let's keep believing that Jesus really is the answer. Let's keep living like eternity really does matter. Let's keep living like we're building something today that others are gonna stand on. Let's keep living a life that we're truly bringing heaven to earth, as short as this life might be. And we may not know what's next for our church, but what we do know is we're gonna be ready and we're gonna transform this city, because Jesus really does make a difference, and he's changing homes and he's breaking generational cycles. So if you're willing to risk today, would you clap your hands in faith and anticipation? I wanna risk it all for the name of Jesus. That's what this is. That's what these moments in a church cycle create, where I don't get comfortable and I step out and I say, all right, Lord, you're worth it. So here's what we're gonna do. If you wanna grab this Heart for the House card, you can grab one right now. They're in your seat backs, hopefully on the front row. You can grab one, there's a pen. Let me just explain kind of what this moment's gonna look like. Some of you came today, it's pre-filled out. You're ready to rock and roll. You're like, let's go. The front part, there is that part where you can say, okay, this is the team I wanna serve on. You may know, I mean, I love kids. I wanna invest in student ministry. I love tech. I wanna do setup. I wanna work with my hands, whatever it is. Maybe you don't know, just check the box saying, I don't really know what it is. So somebody follow up with me and I'd love to talk more. You can do that. Then on the back side, today, if you've come to give a one-time gift towards Heart for the House, make sure it's memoed that, Heart for the House. If you're giving online, there's a drop-down button. Don't select general, select Heart for the House. You can give a one-time gift. Some of you today are gonna be making a 3-month commitment. That's what my family's doing. We're gonna give something today, but then we're also gonna give something over the next 3 months over and above our giving. You would just add those two lines together for what would then be your total. It's just a creative way to think bigger about maybe the generosity that God wants you to express. If you've already given this week online, hey, I still want you to participate, still fill it out. If you're gonna make only a 3-month commitment and you're not gonna even start giving that until next year, January, February, March, that's great, still fill that out. You have really the next 2 weeks to be able to give whatever that offering is. So even if you're not physically giving it today, still a moment for you to put that down. Here's what I'm gonna do. Here's what my family's gonna do. And then when you're ready, here's what I wanna invite you. The band's gonna come out right now and the band's gonna lead us in a song. And if you're married or if you're with your spouse or if you're dating somebody and you're doing this together, just take a moment and pray together. Just pray together that, Lord, use this. Use my life. Help me to be a second mile person. And then at any point during the song, there's no rush. We have these boxes down front. We only do this once a year. Once a year, you physically come down and put your offering or your card in that box, or you could right there from your phone. You can give online, but you come down, you physically, there's something about the physical gesture of doing this that I think is very significant. And then when you're done, you can go back to your seat, you can stand and you can sing with us. Just know today, there is no gift too small, no gift too large. Last week, Pastor Chris already announced that we had a couple families step up and they're basically doing a matching gift. I don't know if you heard this. They're gonna give $150,000, dollar for dollar what we give today, up to $150,000. So basically your gift just doubled, up to $150,000. And I just love that there are already families that are saying, let me go first. Let me prepare the way. We wanna see more churches started. We wanna see a difference made in our city. So I wanna pray, we're gonna worship, and we're gonna give. Father, we thank you so much for these precious moments that we get. Thank you, Lord, that you invite us unworthy, flawed, certainly undeserving, but yet you use broken people like us to bring this message of hope, love, and grace to a lost, broken world. And the reality is, God, the strongest part of who I am is my testimony. It's what you've done in me. And so, Lord, today as families give financially, as we sign up to serve, as we say, man, I'm ready to own this thing. I believe that our best days are ahead. God, we want to risk. Thank you that you carried the weight for us and you went the second mile. Now it's my turn to go the second mile for others. We love you. We pray this in your name.